Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. Paul nervously adjusted his tie as he walked through the gleaming glass doors of Lacey's Intimates, the renowned clothing firm known for their exquisite feminine attire. Fresh out of university with a degree in business, he couldn't believe his luck landing a coveted position in their back office straight away. The sleek, modern lobby bustled with activity as glamorously dressed employees strode purposefully across the polished marble floor, the staccato click of high heels echoing off the walls. "You must be Paul! Welcome aboard!" chirped the immaculately coiffed receptionist, handing him a packet of onboarding documents with a dazzling smile. "HR is expecting you on the 3rd floor." Paul rode the elevator up, his stomach fluttering with anticipation and nerves. He straightened his crisp white shirt and smoothed down his carefully pressed slacks, wanting to make the best first impression. When the doors slid open, he stepped out into a bright, open-concept office space. Racks of sumptuous lace negligées, silky camisoles, and wispy peignoir sets in every color imaginable lined the walls. The gentle swish of delicate chiffon and charmeuse drifted through the air as staff sorted through the alluring wares. "Ah, there's our new back office whiz!" boomed a statuesque woman in a chic red sheath dress, extending a perfectly manicured hand to Paul. "I'm Vivian Lacroix, head of operations. We're thrilled to have you on the team." Paul shook her hand, momentarily dazzled by her commanding presence and intoxicating waft of expensive perfume. "Thank you so much for the opportunity, Miss Lacroix. I'm excited to dive in and learn everything I can." Vivian smiled approvingly, leading him through the maze of workstations. "Wonderful attitude, Paul. Our back office keeps this whole operation running smoothly, from procurement to inventory to fulfillment. You'll be an integral part of the magic we create here." As they walked, Paul couldn't help but marvel at the intricacy and beauty of the lingerie on display. Delicate lace, buttery soft silks, shimmering satins in jewel tones and pastels. There was something undeniably alluring and feminine about each piece. He felt an unexpected pull, a flicker of curiosity he quickly pushed aside. The first few weeks flew by in a whirlwind as Paul threw himself into learning the ins and outs of the business. Purchase orders, vendor relations, inventory tracking, quality control. He absorbed it all like a sponge. His keen eye for detail and head for numbers quickly earned him praise from his colleagues. "Keep up the great work, Paul. Your reports are impeccable," Sheila, his deskmate, said appreciatively one afternoon. "Hey, a bunch of us are going for drinks after work if you want to join. It's Thirsty Thursday tradition around here." "Oh, sure, that sounds great," Paul replied, pleasantly surprised by the invitation. Making friends at a new job was always a bit daunting, but his coworkers seemed a warm, close-knit bunch. That evening, as Paul sipped an old-fashioned and laughed at Jamal from accounting's spot-on impression of their uptight CFO, he felt himself finally starting to relax and let his guard down. The easy camaraderie and lively chatter flowed as freely as the top-shelf liquor. As the night wore on and tongues loosened, the conversation took an unexpected turn. Tara, one of the senior buyers, leaned in conspiratorially, a naughty twinkle in her eye. "So, I probably shouldn't spill the beans, but we've got something very exciting in the works. Hush hush, top secret new product line." Everyone at the table perked up, intrigued. Sheila gasped. "Ooh, dish, girl! You know we can keep a secret. Is Lacey's branching out?" "Well, let's just say we're bringing a little lace to the other side." Tara giggled, clearly a bit tipsy. "Gorgeous lingerie, for men. We're going to blow their minds." A ripple of surprised murmurs went around the group. "Damn, that's bold," Jamal chuckled, raising his glass. "Didn't see that coming, but I'm here for it." "Hey, Paul, maybe you can be our fit model, huh?" Tara teased, playfully elbowing him. "With that lean physique, I bet you'd rock a lacy teddy." Paul nearly choked on his drink, face flushing scarlet as everyone laughed good-naturedly. "Ha, yeah, I don't know about all that," he sputtered, forcing a grin. "Not really my style." But even as the words left his mouth, a tiny ember sparked to life deep within him. Men's lingerie? The idea was so foreign, so taboo, and yet some secret buried part of him thrilled at the suggestion, as unsettling as it was intriguing. He quickly downed the rest of his cocktail, hoping the burn of the whiskey would chase away such ridiculous notions. In the following days, however, Paul found he couldn't shake the idea. As he went about his work, checking in shipments of filmy teddies and slinky tap pants, he kept picturing how the delicate lace would feel against his own skin, how the slippery, cool satin would drape across his body. Unbidden, his gaze would linger on a particularly stunning emerald silk chemise or a frothy, ruffled garter belt, mind wandering to forbidden places. He chastised himself harshly for entertaining such absurd, unmanly fantasies. What was wrong with him? He was a professional, building a career. He needed to focus on his job, not get distracted by this frilly, frivolous nonsense. And yet the yearning persisted, an itch he couldn't scratch. Late at night, he'd guiltily scroll through the Lacey's catalog in his cramped studio apartment, pulse quickening at each new, tantalizing design. His cursor would hover over the discreet Add to Cart button by the Chantilly lace-trimmed satin shorts or the sheer floral embroidered thong, imagination running wild. But he never quite worked up the nerve to go through with a purchase, closing his laptop with a frustrated sigh. Months passed, and Paul continued to excel at work, even as his hidden desires simmered beneath the surface. He got along well with everyone and felt more and more at home amidst the feminine finery that surrounded him each day. Still, he kept his confusing feelings under strict lock and key. Until one fateful afternoon. Paul was reorganizing one of the stock rooms when Vivian breezed in, her heels clicking rapidly in barely contained excitement. "There you are! Come quick, you have to see this!" she trilled, practically dragging him out by the shirt sleeve. "The first samples from the new men's collection just arrived. They're absolutely stunning!" Heart suddenly pounding, Paul followed her to the design wing, not daring to believe it was really happening. There, artfully displayed on a handful of mannequins, was the most breathtaking men's attire he had ever laid eyes on. Exquisite, gossamer soft shirts with flowing poet sleeves and delicate pearlescent buttons. Sinfully snug satin trousers that shimmered under the lights. Plush velvet blazers in rich shades of burgundy and royal blue adorned with intricate silver embroidery. And of course, an array of underpinnings that made Paul's mouth go dry. Sheer lace boxer briefs, sleek charmeuse lounge pants, even a magnificent floor-length dressing gown dripping with ostrich feathers. "Well, what do you think?" Vivian asked, eyes sparkling at Paul's dumbfounded expression. "Isn't it divine? I just know this line is going to be an absolute smash." "It's incredible," Paul managed to croak, utterly transfixed. His hands itched to reach out and caress the sumptuous fabrics, to feel the whisper against his fingertips. "Vivian, they're absolute works of art." She beamed at him, then tilted her head, a sudden gleam in her eye. "You know, I could use an unbiased opinion. These are sized for our fit model, Heath, but you two have very similar builds." She ran an appraising eye over Paul's lean frame, tapping a perfectly lacquered nail to her lips. "Paul, darling, would you be a dear and try a few pieces on for me? Just a quick fit check before we move forward with the full production run?" Her tone was light, but her gaze was sharp, reading him in a way that made him feel utterly transparent. "You'd be doing me such a huge favor." Paul's heart leapt into his throat. Every instinct screamed at him to politely decline, to run far away from this dangerous precipice before he tumbled into the abyss. And yet, he knew with startling clarity that he was powerless to resist. This was the moment he had been both dreading and secretly longing for. Sure, I'd be happy to help," he heard himself say, scarcely recognizing the breathy voice that passed his lips. "Just point me to where I can change." Vivian showed him to a small fitting room, handing him a stack of hangers with a knowing smile. "Take your time. And Paul?" She winked. "Enjoy." With trembling hands, Paul took off his male clothes, folding his mundane slacks and button-down with painstaking care. He stood there in his plain white briefs, heart galloping, palms damp with sweat. This was it. No more hiding, no more denial. He started with a pair of inky black satin shorts that slid over his hips like liquid sin. The fabric was cool and slick against his skin, clinging to every curve and plane. He shivered at the foreignness of it, at how shockingly right it felt. Next came a whisper-soft camisole in the palest blush pink, the delicate straps seemingly weightless on his shoulders. As he slipped it on, the gossamer silk floated around him like a sigh, caressing him with its feather-light touch. He instantly craved more, dizzy with the headiness of it. Paul saved the showstopper for last, a robe the color of the midnight sky, decadently embellished with inky black lace and beading. It slithered over his shoulders like a lover's caress, the weight of it substantial and grounding even as the smooth glide of the satin set his nerve endings aflame. He cinched the sash around his waist and turned to face the mirror, scarcely breathing. The sight that met his eyes was a revelation. Gone was the awkward, unsure Paul he had always known. In his place stood a vision of sensuality and grace, draped in finery that seemed made to adorn his form. The lace scalloping the edge of the robe framed his collarbones like a delicate piece of art. The rich hue made his fair skin luminous, his green eyes glowing like jewels. He had never felt more beautiful, more powerful, more wholly himself. With a shaking hand, he twisted his shoulder-length chestnut hair up into a loose chignon, exposing the elegant line of his neck. A swipe of Vivian's discarded lipstick in a daring shade of crimson was the finishing touch, transforming him utterly.
"Well, hello there, gorgeous,"
he murmured to his reflection, a frisson of giddy elation zipping through him. In that moment, he knew there was no going back. This was his truth, his destiny. The rest of the world would simply have to adjust. When he stepped out of the fitting room, it was on legs that had never felt steadier. He stood tall and proud as Vivian drank in the sight of him, her eyes gone wide and approving. "Paul, you look absolutely spectacular," she breathed, circling him slowly. "But I hope you don't mind me saying, I don't think Paul quite suits the new you." Her smile was radiant, triumphant. She grasped his hands in hers. "What shall we call her?" A beat, and then it came to him, rising up from some deep, hidden wellspring within. He met Vivian's gaze, chin high, a glorious smile breaking across his face. "Pauline," he said softly, the name a benediction on his tongue. "Her name is Pauline." Vivian's eyes sparkled with delight as she took in Pauline's radiant expression. "Pauline," she repeated, savoring the name like a fine wine. "It's perfect, elegant, feminine, strong, just like you." She squeezed Pauline's hands encouragingly. "Embracing your truth, stepping into your power. It's a beautiful thing to witness." Pauline ducked her head, cheeks flushing at the praise even as a giddy bubble of joy expanded in her chest. Terrified, more like. But this... She ran a hand down the silky lapel of the midnight robe, shivering at the decadent feel. "It just feels so right, like coming home to myself." "That's how you know you're on the right path, darling," Vivian said sagely. "When something fits like a second skin, when it sings in your very bones. You were meant for this." The two women shared a moment of perfect understanding, a crackle of solidarity passing between them. Then Vivian clapped her hands, eyes twinkling with mischief. "Well then, we simply must celebrate. A proper debut for the lovely Pauline." She tapped a finger to her lips, considering. "I'm thinking a little after-hours soiree in the showroom. Cocktails, hors d'oeuvres, and of course a private fashion show starring our newest muse." Pauline's eyes widened, pulse kicking up a notch. "Oh, I don't know, Vivian. I'm not ready for an audience. This is all so new, and I'm still figuring it out, and—" "Hush," Vivian interrupted gently, laying a finger against Pauline's crimson-painted lips. "Baby steps, my dear. We'll keep it intimate. Just a few of your biggest supporters from the office. A safe space for you to spread your wings." Pauline wavered, torn between nerves and an undeniable thrill at the idea of showing off her new self. Vivian's enthusiasm was infectious, and the thought of strutting her stuff in more of Lacey's exquisite creations was dizzying. "Well, I suppose a little celebration couldn't hurt," she relented, a slow smile tugging at her mouth. "As long as you're there to hold my hand and keep me from tripping in the heels." "Darling, I'll be right by your side every step of the way," Vivian vowed, eyes crinkling warmly. "Now let's get you out of this robe before you render me completely useless for the rest of the day. I'll pop down to the design studio and pull some pieces for your big debut." With a wink and a swish of her designer sheath, Vivian breezed out, already barking orders into her phone about champagne and canapes. Pauline stood there amidst the racks of sumptuous lingerie and finery, head spinning, knees a bit weak. Was this really happening? Had she actually unlocked this hidden part of herself, all because of a drunken joke and a twist of fate? She thought of her first day at Lacey's, how the delicate wisps of lace and satin had called to her like a siren song, how she'd pushed down that dangerous curl of wanting, buried it deep. But it had always been there, waiting to be acknowledged, waiting for her to be brave enough to listen. With a deep, steadying breath, Pauline began to button up her plain cotton shirt and stepped into her unremarkable slacks. She realized it was more than just the clothes. The rest of the day passed in a giddy, surreal blur. Pauline found it nearly impossible to focus on spreadsheets and shipping reports, mind drifting to satin and lace, to soft silhouettes and daring necklines. She caught herself humming dreamily under her breath, tapping one heeled foot in anticipation. Her co-workers definitely noticed her distraction, sharing curious, amused glances when they thought she wasn't looking. Sheila kept trying to catch her eye, mouthing, "What is up with you?" when Pauline smiled secretively to herself for the dozenth time. Finally, blessedly, the clock struck 5. The office began to clear out as people headed home for the weekend, calling out cheery goodbyes. Pauline dawdled at her desk, stomach aflutter with nerves and excitement. This was it, her moment of truth. As the last few stragglers filtered out, Vivian appeared like a crimson-lipped beacon, a garment bag slung over one elegant shoulder. "Showtime," she sing-songed, looking like the cat who got the cream. "Let's get you glammed up, honey." In a whirlwind of silk and chiffon and clouds of perfume, Pauline was transformed. Vivian zipped her into a stunning sheath dress, the exact deep jade of her eyes. It clung to her narrow torso before flaring out in a mermaid silhouette, a daring slit running up one shapely thigh. "Holy wow," Pauline breathed, staring at her reflection as Vivian fussed with her hair, twisting it into a chic chignon. Sheer stockings and towering stilettos completed the look, making her legs seem miles long. She hardly recognized the sophisticated, statuesque beauty gazing back at her. "Perfection," Vivian declared, daubing Pauline's wrists and décolletage with an intoxicating scent. "You're an absolute vision. Now let's not keep your adoring public waiting any longer." Heart hammering against her ribs, Pauline followed Vivian out to the showroom on slightly unsteady legs, the click of her heels echoing like a metronome. She could hear the clink of glasses and the warm burble of conversation growing louder as they approached. Vivian paused at the doors, turning to clasp Pauline's trembling hands in hers. "Hey, you've got this," she said softly, eyes warm and certain. "You're a goddess and this is your temple. Now go in there and dazzle them." With a final wink, she pushed open the doors. Pauline stepped into the showroom to a chorus of appreciative gasps and whistles. Her co-workers, Sheila, Jamal, Tara, and a handful of others, stood there gaping, cocktail glasses frozen halfway to their lips. The room had been transformed into an intimate cabaret, all twinkling fairy lights and swaths of silk. A makeshift runway cut through the center, lined with roses. "Holy shit, Paul," Jamal sputtered, eyes wide as saucers as he took in Pauline's metamorphosis. "Is that really you under there?" "It's Pauline now," she said softly, chin high, even as her cheeks heated. And yes, it's really me. The realest me there is. Sheila let out a low whistle, circling Pauline admiringly. Damn, girl, you're a knockout. I mean, I always knew you had style, but this… She gestured at the dress, the hair, the heels. This is next level. Seriously, Pauline, you look amazing. Tara chimed in, raising her glass in a toast. Talk about a butterfly emerging from her chrysalis. Work! Pauline ducked her head, overwhelmed by the support and validation. She had been so afraid of their reactions, of judgment or ridicule, but all she saw in their faces was admiration, acceptance, celebration. Vivian clinked a fork against her glass, calling for attention. Friends, I think we can all agree this calls for a toast. She turned to Pauline, eyes suspiciously misty. To Pauline, for having the courage to embrace her truth and the grace to share it with us. May we all be so brave. To Pauline! The room chorused, glasses raised high. Blinking back sudden tears, Pauline accepted a coupe of champagne and took a fortifying sip. The bubbles fizzed and popped against her tongue, bright and effervescent. She felt a bit like that herself, lighter than air, giddy and sparkling. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for a lot more content and early access to YouTube videos.